Welcome, everybody, to Hope for Our Times. Hey, listen, I have a special guest for you all today, and it is going to be an absolutely terrific program. I know most of you already know him. He's a favorite here, John Howler, who, by the way, was a trial lawyer for over 40 years. So with that, he brings a lot to the table. So be careful what you say in the comments, because it may be used against you from today's program. Listen, it's going to be a great time. John, thank you. From the man who hit 2 hole-in-ones in one day.
Well, in the same round on consecutive par threes, 175 yards and 195 yards.
That's pretty impressive. I hit a hole-in-one 2 times also on the same day.
Did you made it through the windmill?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I made it through the windmill on the one, and the other hole, and went like this and landed.
So let me just, I know we only have a short time, but I'll tell you a quick story. So I was playing golf with Zola Levitt out at Oak Quarry in Riverside. You remember Zola?
I remember him, and I know the golf course too.
Yeah, so we're playing, and he's in a bunker on every hole. He loved golf, but he wasn't very good at it. Okay, I can still, he's dead now, so I can get away with it. But he's in a bunker in every hole. So finally, on the 8th hole, he hits in a fairway bunker and gets up at the green, and there's a little tiny pot bunker at the green, by the green, and he's in it. And so I walked up on the green, pretty deep bunker, and so I'm like 15 feet above him, looking down on him. And I said, Zola, I love you, man, and I haven't had you on the clock today, but I'm pretty sure you've now spent more time in the sand than your forefathers did getting from Egypt to the promised land. So
that's great.
It just seemed like a very appropriate dig at the time. He thought it was pretty funny.
Literally digging out that trap. Oh, that's great. Hey, I have a lot to ask you about.
Sure.
So as we look at, it's only January 3. So of 2024, and people are already longing, as you said, for the good old days of 2023. I mean, I look at things going on. There's so much happening, John. And then I came across this article also, and I believe you saw it also. I mean, I don't even know where to start today. We don't have a lot of time, but Iraq breaks ground on a $2 billion project to build a new city. As I'm reading through this, they're talking about parts of it being in the area of ancient Babylon. Of course, you and I both, you're friends with Joel Kramer. I'm hoping to have him on the program one day. I watched Joel Kramer's study on Babylon. He said basically all those prophecies of ancient Babylon were fulfilled. Joel's outstanding on what he does, so it's got me to think about things. You have the theory about Neom, but I mean, we look at all this. Listen, everything is coming together, but you made another great statement. I mean, you have a lot of them. Prophecy will be fulfilled as it is written. How's the whole statement go?
Well, when we were talking beforehand, the pressure sometimes you feel, I feel, J.B. Hicks and other people feel is, boy, we got to be something new, fresh, exciting, a prediction. So I said, well, let's make the prediction that prophecy will be fulfilled as it is written, not necessarily as it's being interpreted by everybody. Because the one thing I've noticed, I think I said this at one of the conferences I spoke at with you this past summer, was that, the theory is that there are 30,000 denominations in the Christian church. And I'm not sure that's true. I think it's probably in the low thousands. Except when it comes to eschatology, then there's about 95,000 denominations, because everybody's kind of got their own idea. And so I think we need to, so I try to take, even though I've got ideas about how it works out, I try to be humble about it, that maybe I don't have the exact final answer. And there's a lot of things that happen day to day, week to week. The pressure, I think, is to wow people when you speak. My point now is, though, that I think that real life is just a wow factor on everything that you see going on. So you mentioned, the Iraqi government's raising, I think it was $2 billion to build 5 cities in Iraq, including one in the Babel governorate. So the Babel government, this is where I think Andy Woods, Arnold Fruchtenbaum, and a bunch of other guys think that there will be a rebuilt Babylon in the end time. I'm not excluding that could happen. I think that it's a possibility. So what I do is I sort of have buckets. So I have a Rome bucket. I have a Neom or Mecca, Saudi Arabia bucket. I've got a literal Babylon rebuilt in Iraq bucket. And so I just sort of throw things in those buckets as they come on and look at each one of them. And somebody would say, well, you're just a chicken, because that means you can always say, I was right all along. I was talking about this. But I think we're at that point. And my only point, when I talk about Bible prophecy a lot, I talk about logistics. So when we see the prophecy in Ezekiel 38 and 39 about a great company and a mighty army, that doesn't mean 20 guys walking around the Lebanese border. It means, and remember, every time Nasrallah gets a cold or something like that, he coughs in a video, people are saying, oh, he's got COVID, he's dying, he's going to attack before he dies, and all this other stuff. So I think we need to kind of avoid that thing where, what's the other? Oh, I know what it is. As a trial lawyer, I finished law school 44 years ago last month, it's hard to believe. I'm not sure how that happened, but it did. But when you're a young lawyer, when you're doing a case and you're looking at a particular issue and you're trying to build your case and present it, what you do is you come up with the tendency is that everything you look at and everything you pick up proves your case, and it doesn't. But you're so intent on proving your case. So I think sometimes that's why I can say I'm lazy. That's why I'm not super focused all the time. That's why I had, like 300 or 400 cases at a time sometimes. But that's why I haven't written a book. But the tendency I see sometimes is when a guy does write a book, that they become an expert on a particular bit of knowledge, but sometimes there's a tendency, and I'm not saying that you did this or J.B. Hickson or anybody that I'm thinking of right now, but I've seen guys do it where they turn the book and the knowledge into a hammer, and then everything in the world becomes a nail that they pound on with that hammer that proves the points they made in their book. And so I think that's something we want to avoid.
Yeah. So just
when we're talking about Bible prophecy.
Just so you know, I haven't done that yet. But now you gave me an idea.
I exclude you.
Now you gave me an idea. I think I might start doing that now.
Yeah. You need to get your hammer out more, Tom. You have a whole toolbox of them now, with the latest book.
There's so much out there. But again, going back to the statement, prophecy will be fulfilled as it is written, not necessarily how we interpret or however the rest of the statement goes. And you think of this throughout world biblical history. All the prophecies of the past, they were there, but you couldn't, there's no way somebody could have understood from the prophecy of the birth of Jesus that he'd be born in Bethlehem. There's not a single person that could have figured out, hey, because it says this, Caesar Augustus is going to issue a decree that a young couple is going to have to leave Nazareth and go to Bethlehem. Nobody could have figured out the how. And sometimes when it comes to Bible prophecy, with the second coming of Christ, we can get too wrapped up in the how. We just know it's going to be fulfilled as is written. Now, we can look at things like Babylon, which I want to ask you more about Neom, and we can look at things like that, and we can look, there's a mark of the beast, so we can look at digital, all the technology, CBDCs, and go, yeah, it's definitely going that way. But there's certain things that we just can't, where sometimes prophecy people become so dogmatic on one particular thing that got people into the weeds last year, predicting the rapture is going to happen in September, the rapture is going to happen in December. The COP28 meeting was the Daniel chapter 9 covenant. I heard that 1,000 times in this last year. And it gets you into the weeds when you get off of the script that is written in the Bible.
Right. So, like the COP28 thing and the climate change and the World Economic Forum and CBDCs, I think all of this is incredibly important stuff to be talking about. So, you and I, we talk about it. I think the problem becomes is when we plant our flag and say, this is that which was prophesied. Your statement about Bethlehem is just absolutely fantastic. And it's an example that I use sometimes to show that, we don't always, sometimes it's certain what happened when we're looking back. But two things about Bethlehem. One of the other prophecies that's in Matthew, this is that which was prophesied by the prophet, behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son. So my point was, I found this terrific resource. Somebody sent me, it's called Viz Bible, Vizbible, and they have an incredible chart showing the line all the way from God all the way to Jesus. And they show the two lines from David, the one that went through Mary and the one that went through Joseph. But one of the interesting things about that is that prophecy existed, a virgin shall conceive, and we knew that it would be from the line of David. Now, the line that went through, I think it was Chuck Missile I first heard talk about this, had some problems that the natural line was kind of disqualified, but the line through Joseph, but they went through, it got there by both directions. But the point is, though, that when Jesus was coming, Daniel had given some pretty good time markers as to when the Messiah would appear. We know that after 69 weeks, he would be cut off. So you can go back from that and you can figure, well, he's going to have a ministry. And usually, a Jewish guy would start his ministry at age 30. And so you can kind of work it back. And amazingly, some guys from over in the East came because they were paying attention and they saw the sign and they said, okay, this has to be related to this Daniel thing that we've been reading about us and our predecessors have been reading about for 500 years. So they came. But on the same token, a virgin shall conceive. I don't think rabbis were running around Israel saying, do you have any pregnant virgins around? Yeah. I'm not sure there's any historical evidence of that. But then once it happened, you could say, oh, look, it was prophesied. This is that which was prophesied. So we've kind of getting a little far afield. So maybe we need to go back to where the wise men, the Magi came from, which was over near Babylon, probably in that region. And so I think it's possible that Babylon will be rebuilt. But my point is that there's a logistics aspect. And so if we're really that close, as close as we think we are, this is going to be a great commercial city. And there's just nothing there right now. I think Joel Kramer did that in one of his videos on Expedition Bible. Yeah, he did. And Joel's an important voice. I mean, 4 of the best days of my life, most impactful spiritual days of my life were spent, Pam and I and Joel driving around Judea and Samaria, going to all these different sites, and just the 3 of us. And I'm telling you, it was an incredible time in the land. So I think Babel could be built, but there's nothing there yet. And there was 20 years ago, there was a blog on the Washington Post blog, I think it was, that said, hey, maybe we ought to move the UN to old Babylon. Mm-hmm. And everybody got all excited. Well, that was 20 years ago, and there's really been no progress on anything since. There's some ruins that have been restored. There's an archaeological park there and everything, but I'm just not seeing it myself. Maybe it'll happen. You can still be my friend if you think that.
Well, so I have actually taught that in the past, that I believe it will be the original Babel, as people wrote off Jerusalem before Israel became established again in 1948, and then the Jews took the city in 1967. People said Jerusalem, if you read old commentaries, it's never going to happen, right? So you look at it, Jerusalem comes out of nowhere. God said it would. And Babylon was this city that was always a problem when you go back to the Tower of Babel and everything, and it's an affront to God. So I've taken that position
Sure.
based on, I think it was Charles Dwyer and some others that have written about it. Now, with that being said, after I watched Joel Kramer's study on it, I thought, John Haller might be right. and in all seriousness, go ahead.
Well, I'm not excluding it.
Yeah, I mean,
and when I say, though, that we ought to consider other things, boy, I get some really nasty emails.
You know what? What happened last year when we said things, listen, don't pay attention to the predictions, the raptures can happen on such and such date. Oh, man, I got so much hate mail at that time. People canceling you, just nuts, you know. But it is what it is. You know, you would think that people within the Bible prophecy circle would be the ones, you know, people watch us, I'm sure for the most part, want to know the truth, and that's why they, you know, they want to be discerning. Okay, so we look at where we've been 2023, where we are going in 2024. Certainly we know, you mentioned these things are important. World Economic Forum, the COP28 meeting, the World Health Organization. We can see a drive towards globalism, so we don't write off what the Bible says about the teachings of Bible prophecy, because Jesus even gave us signs. We're told to look, we're told to watch, we're told to be ready. We know we need to be watchmen, so that is why we do what we do. But I do think it's a danger planting our flag in it. I mean, just like, you know, we have the globalists saying, hey, 2030 is our year. We know they are driving to 2030, but God could do whatever he wants before then or after then.
Right. Yeah, so like the World Economic Forum meeting's coming up January 15th to 19th this year. So it's you know, it's not even really 2 weeks away now. Or it's less than 2 weeks away from January 3rd here. So that's something to pay attention to. I think it's important. Yeah. You know, and there's so many things going on so many different lines. And I certainly think that this Babylon thing, that's a system that comes up in the end times. There's even people that believe that Jerusalem is Babylon. And I personally have trouble wrapping my head around that. I
do too.
I can't. That's the one that really kind of, I think I could probably get in the debate and debunk that a little bit, and then I know I'm going to get a lot of nasty email about that, but that I just don't understand how this works. But I think there's some problems that flow out of that particular view, and not the least of which I think is it sort of feeds anti-Semitism, which seems to be a major problem in the world right now.
It is. Oh my, you know, John,
I've never seen anything like it.
I'm watching things that are coming out of churches regarding Israel right now, and anti-Semitism that are really astounding. I mean, the lies are off the charts, but these things are so promoted,
right?
And they become very popular. You know, nobody's paying it. Go ahead.
Well, and it's people that we thought were our allies, as we talked about this rise of globalism and control through the Charlie Vector thing. And now all of a sudden, these people are just virulently anti-Semitic, and the Jews are the cause of all the wars and problems in the world. It's people that we like. Now, look, I've said this before, you can make Israel an idol in a wrong way. You know, we support Israel and everything, but you can't think that it's all perfect. I mean, nobody thinks that thinks Israel has a right to exist in the land, and that this is a fulfillment, the beginning of the fulfillment of Bible prophecy to bring them back to Messiah. But on the other hand, too, you shouldn't use, as I said, clever theology to hide your rank anti-Semitism. And so people that were allies of us, some of them have come out just horribly anti-Semitic. It's unbelievable. Others are a little bit more clever. I never really overtly say anything anti-Semitic. I just interview them and don't challenge them when I interview them. And that's a big problem in the conservative community too, now in my view.
It's a great way of putting it. I think Isaiah 28 is clear when there's at least my belief of Isaiah 28, it parallels Daniel 9 for the covenant that's going to come. So Isaiah 28 is clear. Jerusalem will be led by scornful men who will willingly enter into a covenant with the devil, knowing it's a lie. So we aren't saying, what the lies are said about people like you and I are, we blindly support Israel in all things. That's foolish. No, there's all kinds of wickedness going on throughout the entire world, Gentile world and Jewish world. It's just absurd to think we're going to blindly support anything. But I do understand the Bible.
And Jesus isn't really running any of these countries directly yet.
No, he's not. That's
people.
great. That's a great way of putting it.
We're monarchists. You know, we believe that the king is coming back. But I think, so for example, there's a lot of people really down on the Israeli government now. I mean, they just came out with this decision overturning the judicial reform, which I personally, and I have friends in Israel that would say, oh, that's a good thing that happened. These crazy right-wingers were trying to take over the country and get rid of democracy. So we got a decision that says that their vote doesn't count, but now we're pro-democracy when the court says their vote doesn't count. It's sort of an insane argument that's made, and I don't think judicial tyranny is the way to go in any event. But then with the October 7th thing, I saw your update that you did with Brandon Holthouse and David Tao Sunday evening. And there was a brief discussion in there. I don't know if it was Brandon or David talking about a lot of people down on the government because they just missed what was happening. They missed this event. They weren't ready for it. And I have friends in Israel who are like, the government's evil. They're the ones who planned it. They let it happen. They did this on purpose. And they'll say it was IDF guys, it was anti-Netanyahu guys, it was Netanyahu. Nobody's come up with a definitive idea as to exactly who it was. But my point is, though, if they had taken the warning seriously, what would they have done?
Yeah, well, you sent me an article.
Exactly what they're doing now.
Yeah, you sent me an article quite some time ago of Mordecai Kedar?
Dr. Kedar, he wrote that. He published some information that he had received from someone back in April of
6 months before. 6 months
April
before.
Of 2023, yeah.
Right, and it was like reading the headlines from October 8th.
Right.
And so obviously there were these warnings out there. Brandon had pointed it out, and David had agreed with him. Brandon brought up an outstanding point, too, that the problem that Israelis have right now is who do they trust? You see anti-Semitism from the right and the left. They're finding out they don't know who to trust in their own government. They know they can't trust these leaders in the Western world, certainly can't trust the Biden administration. So who do they trust? And as Brandon pointed out, the man will come, Antichrist, who's going to seemingly be the one they can trust.
That's, I told some friends, great people. Okay, they're Zionists, they're Orthodox, and I won't tell you who they were, but I said this to a couple people because everybody, when I was in Israel a year ago, last month for that media summit, they're all excited about the Abraham Accords. This is great economic, and they were emphasizing the economic component. This is great for our economy and money, and we're all going to get rich off of this. And I said, so when I look at what this beast system is, a big component of the beast system is an economic component. So when I see the Abraham Accords, and I said, be careful with those things because it's a trap. We know that the countries that are entering into that with them seem to be identified in the Psalm 83 group. They're from the Psalm 83 group that are conniving. And what's it going to be behind you? So if we have just a minute, let's talk about Neom a little bit. I was just looking at some things on that. This thing, you can go to a website called ArcGIS, ARCGIS. Go to the satellite map and zoom in on the area of Neom. It's across from the southern end of the Sinai Peninsula, across the Gulf of Aqaba, near the Straits of Tiran. Tiran. And they're building this, and you can zoom in on the map and you can actually see miles and miles of the basic, at least the leveling of the land. This thing, and so they're building it, and then this thing is going to be, if it comes about, even if it's only partially built. And by the way, when God intervened on Babel, the tower wasn't finished. Am I right?
Right.
Okay,
they were building,
so
let us build a tower to the heavens. And God says, hey, if they achieve this, nothing that man sets its heart to do they'll be able to do anything if they achieve this.
So if that pattern holds, then we have the pattern of this may not, if this is part of this Babylonian system that's being built, it's not going to get done anyway. And so people that believe Babylon, Iraq, they can say the same thing. It's not going to be finished when it comes to power. So it could be either one. But this thing, 2 towers, essentially 1,500 feet tall. The plan is to build them each 100 miles long from the Red Sea into the desert, across the mountain range where Jebel al-Lawz is, which I believe is the biblical Mount Sinai. And I bet you $100 that Joel Kramer disagrees with that, but that's okay. He's not right about everything. And but it goes across that mountain range, and they say it's 20%. What the basics of it's 20% completed already.
Wow.
Now, they don't have the big buildings yet, but they're going to figure out a way to do this. And then in Riyadh, they're building this thing called the Mukaba or the Muraba or something like Mukaba. The new Kaaba essentially is what it is. Neom means new, I can't remember, new something. This new Muraba, which is a cube, 1,400 or 1,500 feet high on each side, virtual reality inside. I don't know if you've seen pictures of this Spheres thing that they built in Las Vegas.
I've seen it. Not pictures. Okay. I've actually seen it.
Okay. It's unbelievable. And inside, I saw some videos of the U2, I think was the first concert there. Yep. And the screen inside and the virtual reality, in London, they're doing this virtual reality thing for the last year and a half of ABBA, where it's all holograms.
Yeah, my least favorite band of all time. But anyways.
It's like when it gets in your head, though, it's just, It makes you smile.
I'm sorry. I probably got a whole bunch of people mad at me right now.
But there's that going on. That, by the way, the founder of the United Arab Emirates spoke. He's been dead for a while. He spoke in a hologram at COP28 in Dubai just recently. So all this stuff is coming. Now I forget the point I was trying to make, but we know it's coming. We know it won't be finished when it's done. But it's this virtual reality thing, and what's going on is really it's pretty incredible. Yeah. So when you had Scott Townsend on a couple of weeks ago, I said, here's Scott scaring everybody to death.
Yes, you did.
And Brett Gillette came along and outdid Scott the other day. So that was on the economic stuff. There's so much stuff going on. So I think, again, we don't need to focus on the wow factor. We just need to pay attention to what's going on. I think we do need to pay attention to the news, but let me, and I don't know how much time we have, but I know you want to keep this to a reasonable amount, but
keeping John
the idea that I got from somebody was this thing that I've seen that's kind of really touched my heart, motivated me, is they call it apocalyptic evangelism. And I think we can tie it into the Bible so that as we see these things coming together, we're told in Ephesians 6, put on the whole armor of God. And when we went through that at FBC a few years back, one of the elders, Mike Clapham, did just phenomenal teaching in his home Bible study on that. It needs to be turned into a book. But one of the points he made was that when you get to the last part, your feet shod with the gospel of peace. When you unpack that, that's really the piece that it's talking about is the coming messianic kingdom. And as we get closer to that being established, I think that needs to be part of our gospel message. You need to be ready for the coming kingdom. It's not teaching kingdom now or dominionism or anything like that. It's getting people ready for the coming king and using what the events that are going on that point to that, what I would call certainty that that there will be an establishment of a messianic kingdom, and that ought to be part of the urgency, I guess, of the gospel, the necessity of accepting the gospel and believing the gospel message.
John, I think that is great, getting ready for the coming kingdom, because that really should be what Bible prophecy is. We're warning, right? But we're also saying, hey, you got to get ready. When you think of John the Baptist, what's he doing? He's warning of judgment, and he's saying, hey, get ready, you know? So this is what, I love how you just phrased that. It just is right. I mean, you look at what...
We've talked about this too, that pilgrimage road in Jerusalem that they're getting, I think it's going to be open in 2025. And the talk was, when I was there a year ago, there are going to be 2 million Jews and Christians a year walking on that thing from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. Now,
that's amazing.
My thinking on that is, how do we use that as an evangelistic tool? Because to me, it's sort of millennial practice.
John,
walking up to the mount.
This is great. So I'm watching Scott Stripling.
Great archaeologist.
Yeah, and he's there in Shiloh, aka Shiloh. And I was just in Israel in May, and I'm watching what has been uncovered in Shiloh just since May. It is phenomenal. And guess what? I'm going back to Israel tomorrow. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you did.
I'll send you pictures. So,
okay.
but I look at this, and I love it.
I promise not to accept them as that you're gloating.
So I look at this as getting ready, and I think, John, this is so cool because you know David Tall, and you've had him on your program and different things. But I look at
not yet,
him,
but I'm going to have him on.
Okay. So with him, his brother's ministry for Messianic Jews on how to not just go, you're going to be in the IDF, but also how to share the truth of the gospel. So they're actually in there now, sharing the truth side by side. They're apologetically set. They understand the Bible and how to share Jesus. And then you look at what you just mentioned, the Pilgrim Road. Listen, God is opening up doors for us to prepare people for the kingdom that's coming. And he's using all the warning signs about what's going on right now. And you are so spot on. This needs to be our focus, preparing people for the kingdom that's coming and for the king that's coming. Antichrist is coming.
The people of the king.
And this is just great. I just love this thought process.
There's a friend of ours, we'll leave his name out of it for now, but he has a tagline that he likes that's always kind of grabbed me. And he's like, if you really believe Romans 11 and what Romans 11 says about all Israel shall be saved. Now, we don't know exactly how that all works out, but to take that is, the first Christians were Jews, and the last Christians will be Jews.
Wow.
And then the king comes.
That is great. Oh, that's fantastic. I just absolutely love that. Just so good. Hey, there's something else that you wrote to me, and I love it. 2023 was an average year, much worse than 2022, but much better than 2024, and we're just getting started. I wish I could fit all that into a title. John, I do got to go. I know there's so much more I'd like to talk about. I'm going to try to figure out a way how I can have you on as a regular, like every week. I think it'd just be great because there's so much more that I know you have to share that I'd like to ask you about today, but we're going to work it out. Maybe I can do video with you, stream it from Israel, and see if we can do something there in the coming next few days. So.
And maybe we can reverse that sometime.
Well, we can.
We might. Or we can do there together.
Well, guess what? I'm going to see our friend Roddy. Shout out, Roddy. Looking forward to seeing you.
In Jerusalem.
And he's going to ask me, he already texted me, is John coming with you? So now I already told him you're not coming with me this time. But John will. Looking forward to seeing you, Roddy. And John, it was great having you again today, as always. Looking forward to whatever we can do in 2024. I love the things that you shared today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom. Always good to talk to you, and we'll try to do more of these little talks together.
I'm going to have to work it out. I have to.
And maybe we'll just get like you and me and Brandon and David Tall, and we'll just open the mics up and talk for a couple hours or something like that.
We could easily do that too. I know they
I
would
think
be
we
willing.
might be able to fill that time up.
Oh yeah. And get a Mira Vivi on also. It'd be great.
That's right.
God bless you,
right.
everybody. Thank you
God
for
bless.
joining us. John, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. See you, everyone.